cousin, spending 12-hour workdays hunched over machinery in a factory, working tirelessly to produce the cheap products that we use every day. This isn't just some distant story that I'm telling you right now. It's the reality behind many of the imported goods in the United States. As college students, we tend to buy the cheapest options for our budgets. However, it's important for us to recognize how buying these cheap products derived from unethical labor practices impact child labor on a national to global scale. After conducting extensive research on this topic, I can assure you that child labor is not some isolated issue. It's something that involves many consumers in this room. Ultimately, I believe that the United States International Trade Administration should strengthen its ban on child labor. Now, let's investigate the causes of this child labor crisis, examine the effects, and develop a solution. First, let's address the causes of this issue. There are many core causes of the current child labor crisis. The United States downplaying the importance of this issue and the pursuit of maximum profits heightens this problem. The United States promotes this myth of child labor being outlawed while still maintaining it on its land. According to the United States Department of Labor, the Fair Labor Standards Act was established to prohibit the abuse of children in the workforce. These measurements include children under the age of 16 cannot work in any field of manufacturing and mining, and those under the age of 18 cannot work in any occupation declared hazardous. Furthermore, according to the United States Customs and Border Protection, products derived from child labor are prohibited from being imported into the United States. These two acts are meant to protect children in the workforce and ensure that child labor comes nowhere near the United States. However, according to Dreer from the New York Times in 2023, it still happens here. The United States denial, the commonality of this issue, allows it to continue as a shadow workforce across the United States. Next, corporate greed and consumer demand also enable the issue of child labor. Child labor is the result of companies wanting the maximum profit, and consumer demand wanting the cheapest possible products prompts these companies to mass produce cheap products utilizing the cheapest method available out there, child labor. According to Cardona from Uniform Market in 2024, the fast fashion industry is infamous for utilizing child labor. Its worth increased with consumer demand from $91 billion in 2021 to $136 billion in 2024. And according to Washburn and colleagues from Global Health Action in 2022, the COVID-19 pandemic is also a great contributor to this issue, as during this time, consumers wanted the cheapest and most accessible options, and that's what mass production and child labor gave them. Now, let's turn to the effects of this issue. These causes create negative effects globally. The demand for child labor is increasing, and anti-child labor laws are full of loopholes. Let's start with how internationally and domestically the demand for child labor is increasing. Because the demand for child labor-derived products is so normalized, so is turning a blind eye to the increase in the usage of child labor. According to Schur and Mass from Economic Policy Institute in 2023, the number of minors employed nationally increased by 37% in 2022. And according to Finnegan from the New Yorker in 2023, the number of minors employed rose by 283% from 2015. Another important effect to mention is how current United States anti-child labor laws are riddled with loopholes, leaving them weakly enforced. Because the United States doesn't see child labor as an immediate issue, less resources have been given to the United States Department of Labor. According to Schur and Mass from Economic Policy Institute in 2023, the Fair Labor Standards Act has long struggled with underfunding for its agencies, leading to inadequate oversight of the enforcement of this law. And with fewer investigators being employed under the Department of Labor, significant delays in identifying these violations have been found, and therefore this allows these exploitative practices to continue in the United States. While these issues are a part of our everyday lives, there is still hope. There's a clear solution within our grasp. To address this issue, we must strengthen the United States' current anti-child labor laws and champion affordable alternatives for the general public. First, we can tackle this issue at a systemic level by urging the United States International Trade Administration to strengthen the Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act. As a reminder, this act is meant to prohibit the importation of goods derived from child labor. And according to Reed from The Guardian in 2024, many workers' rights campaigns have called out companies infamous for utilizing child labor for their lack of transparency in their supply chains. Therefore, to achieve this goal, we must mandate more detailed documentation in the products that are being imported into the United States. This includes who the suppliers are and the methods of production. To ensure the United States Department of Labor has the resources it needs to enforce these laws, we must instate a new state sales tax on fast fashion to ensure that the Department of Labor is well funded and to strip fast fashion of its #1 asset, being cheap. Another solution is urging consumers to prioritize quality over quantity, the exact opposite of mass production, which commonly uses child labor. This would mean supporting brands that promote ethical labor practices like Made in USA, Patagonia, and Pact. According to Clark Sather from Journal of Cleaner Production in 2018, consumer-driven changes reduce and weaken market incentives to utilize child labor, and consumer-driven campaigns support local production. Therefore, these plans will work because strengthened regulations and consumer-driven campaigns will create an environment where these manufacturers and these companies are held accountable and are publicly scrutinized and will decrease the demand for child labor-derived goods. With these changes, kids can focus on just that, being kids, not on when their next paycheck will come or on whether they'll lose a limb on their next workday, but instead focus on growing up. To ensure the greatest impact, we must act efficiently. Today, we've talked about the many causes of the current child labor crisis, examined the effects ranging from laws to on children themselves, and we've talked about possible solutions to end this issue. Ultimately, the United States International Trade Administration should strengthen its ban on child labor. So soon, children around the world will have the opportunity to play inside instead of working in factories.